Thank you all for introducing yourselves. I'm going to tell everybody a story about myself. Pretty much take you back a couple years from the beginning to what got me to this point. As a part of our first episode, we want to introduce ourselves to the world, joining the podcast world. This is something different. I feel like this podcast is going to be unique. This show is going to be informative, educational. You're going to hear some great advice. We're going to drop some great gems, share some great reads, some great books. We're going to talk about actions that's going on in the country, demonstrations that's going on by different organizations. We're going to talk about all the latest topics. Of course, we're going to touch on some political things, but I want everybody to feel comfortable at home. I want everybody to feel relaxed. I don't want everybody to be themselves, be raw, be truthful, and just be free. Here we have a space that's going to be freedom of speech. There is no censorship here. We don't censor ourselves, and this is what this podcast is going to be about. I, I hope everybody enjoy what we have to offer to the world. So here we go. I started working very young. My first job as an essential worker now uh, was 16 years old. My first job at Target. Uh, I started off as a cart attendant, collecting carts in the parking lot. And I felt like it was good to have a paycheck coming in at that time. Minimum wage back then was 7.25, unheard of right now in the 21st century. But yeah, it was actually 7.25 back then, and I enjoyed it. I was 16. I was a athlete at the time. I was playing basketball, sports. So I had a girlfriend in high school that was a monthly bill, and she didn't want to date no broke dude. So I had to get a job to at least take her to the movies. And she was raised by a mother that said the guy got to pay for everything. So I was in that situation, and it was fine though. Unfortunately, I didn't last long at Target. Um, Not going to get into what actually happened, but just say that I was fired from that job. And um, you know, I was got into the workforce early. I worked at another job I was a dietary aide at my mom's uh nursing facility she used to work at in Demorest, New Jersey, I believe. And I love that job because I love working with senior citizens. They have so much wisdom and so much to offer to the youth, and I used to love delivering the food in the morning to them, and um, it was a good job as well. To build relationship with people I don't know. So yeah, I got into the essential worker business fairly young, and from that point on, I realized the type of worker I am as a person. Um, I'm not a person that can have an office job. I like a more hands-on. I like to work with my hands. I like to have physical jobs to keep me moving on my feet. I like those type of jobs, fast paced, because I feel like time goes by, and for whatever reason, I feel like it benefited my skill set as a person. Um, so years later, I went to Indian River State College down in Florida, uh, St. Lucie, Port St. Lucie, Florida. And I went to school for business, and I didn't really know what I wanted. I just know I wanted to be in the music industry. So I went for, I majored in business and I minored in music. And I tried to learn the business side of it first. I didn't like Florida. Bush was in office back then, and a gallon of gas was $5. So I got a job down there at another nursing home, and I was making like $250 every other week. So I literally had enough money to just drive to college and come back home. Like that was it. That was it. It was so expensive. The cost of living, at least I wasn't making enough money to sustain uh, living down there at the time. So I moved back up. I got homesick, moved back up to New Jersey. I went to the Institute of Audio Research in New York, next to NYU for audio research engineering. And I became Don't look me up, y'all. But I became a rapper, and I had a pretty good buzz going on in New Jersey at that time. I did a lot of shows. I've done some shows with some big name artists. I'm not gonna go back into that space, but there is some artists that are well known that are out there that I've done shows with, collaborated with, and I had fun. I was young, and it was great to live that lifestyle. Learn about the music industry. But now becoming a musician myself, doing shows all over New York, all over the tri-state, I enjoyed that time of my life as well. But then I fell in love with my children's mother at the time, and we didn't have any children. We known each other from high school. When I got married, young. I want to say I was 21 when I got married. I'm still young now. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the old nigga in the club yet, but I am 31. But I got married when I was 21, and yeah, it I gave up my rap career to take care of my family. After I got married, uh, to the same year we had our twins, so I gave up music to jump back into the essential workers business, our field. And I got multiple jobs because now I didn't expect to have not just one baby, I'm having two babies. And we already had a child. So that went from one to three in a blink of an eye. So I knew I had to bust my ass and get a job and get more than one job, which I did. I worked like no other. I had about 3 or 4 jobs. I worked at Home Depot. I worked at Boston Market. I worked at Walmart overnight, and I worked at the tile shop in the warehouse as well. So I had like 4 jobs going, and I also was working at Giant Stadium, MetLife Stadium, on Sundays as a cashier at the time. So yeah, I did what I had to do to take care of my family and make ends meet. I gave up pretty much my rap career, and pretty much going back to college was out of the question. I didn't have time or couldn't even afford it at the time. Um, so several years later, I want to fast forward until about 2012. I started working at a grocery distribution warehouse, overnight graveyard shift, and it was unionized, but you had to make the union, and that was the hard part, making the union. You had 90 days to prove yourself at this warehouse that you can make the union. And grown men, I was the youngest employee at the time, and grown men that were bigger, stronger than me, I at least at that time, was quitting this job every single day, every single week. This job hired every single week because people would quit on the spot. It was so physical. We're talking about lifting groceries overnight, palletizing them, and pretty much loading trucks all throughout the night, and they'll call mandatory overtime the same night of you working. So you can work anywhere from 8 to 10 hours when the company needed you to. And I did that for about 3 years, and I didn't realize. I heard about supervisors calling workers out of their names, calling workers racial slurs, and all our supervisors were white. Most of my coworkers were Black and brown. They came from Newark, New Jersey. They came from the urban area or the hood. A lot of them were convicts or ex-convicts and had criminal history. And this job was everything to them. But they knew about the issues with these supervisors. They told me about it. They told me like, this supervisor is racist, or this supervisor is an asshole. And I'm like, well, why did we put up with it? That was my thing. But, I avoided it. I avoided the drama. I pretty much kept my head down. And I was just about my money. I just wanted to go there, go to work, come home. I wasn't making friends with everybody. That was just me. I realized I was going to have my own situation when I applied for my vacation time when I was rightfully old. I went to the office and spoke to the supervisor, who I rarely had a relationship with, and He pretty much exploded on me. But for some reason, because of all the rumors and what I was told by other coworkers, I had my cell phone on record in my pocket when I went into the office. And I had the whole conversation. He exploded on me. Pretty much, he got upset. He hit the table. He called me out of my name, and I stayed calm because I knew what I had in my pocket. And I said, okay. And I walked out. But being in the union, you are protected. So I went down to the office and I spoke to somebody in HR and I told them what happened. I played them the tape and they were appalled by it. But I still felt like they knew about this man or this particular person because he'd been there for 30 years. I'm like, there's no way this is the first time somebody never could, has complained about him. And yeah, something needs to be done. So pretty much we had an arbitration about it. The union came down, the shop members and the union reps came down. We sat in the room and they asked me. I felt great because they asked me, what do I want to happen to him? And I said, this man doesn't need to be working here. He needs to be fired. He needs to be terminated. He's calling people N-words. He's calling people out their name. He has a history of doing this. Why are we allowing this man to work here? And I didn't get the response I wanted from the union, actually. The union just gave him a slap on the wrist. They said that they coached him. And I'm like, coached? What is coach? They spoke to him. I don't know what was said to him. Maybe they didn't even do that, but that's what they told me. And that wasn't enough for me. I said, that's just unacceptable. So I was already looking for my way out. And that's how I found it. Well, my mom actually, I blame my mom. Mom, if you're watching, I'm sorry, but I'm telling the truth. My mom, she knew what was going on, and she knew I didn't like working there. So she was looking for other jobs for me. And then she brought to my attention Amazon was hiring in Carteret, New Jersey. They were having a hiring spree because they were launching a new building. And it was like a quick process. You apply, you're going to get the job. And I did. I applied, had orientation. And I was already in love with it from day one when I went to the orientation because it was at this fancy, I believe it was a Holiday Inn hotel, like banquet hall room or whatever. And they had food for us. And the general manager was there. He was a black dude. His name was Chris Cooper. And I didn't even know at the time he was a general manager. He was so cool. He was so laid back. And it was great. People there were friendly and nice. And I felt like this is a job that I would love to have. And I was happy to be hired and start with the company. So in 2015, I opened up EWR9, and it was great. I was a warehouse associate. I took a pay cut, making $12.75 an hour, and I started at Amazon. I worked hard because I came from a production warehouse. So when I came to Amazon, I had that mentality like, okay, this is a production warehouse. Even though they broke the process down to be so simple, I'm saying at the end of the day, I'm on the clock as soon as I clock in. And I was ahead of the game. I realized that everything was ran off of metrics and numbers. At that time in 2015, the hourly rate for Amazon for picking items, customer items in my department was 250 items an hour. That's what they wanted you to pick. And I was doing twice that. I was doing 500. Numbers they never seen at the time. They were like, what is this guy doing? I was busting my ass, literally busting my ass. I was the number one picker in the building and probably one of the number one pickers in the entire Amazon network back then. I didn't realize how valuable I was until years later, until I at least got promoted up. But at that time, I was literally responsible for making our daily goal every day because I was that valuable and that good of a worker. So I got promoted up in 7 months. Everybody knew who I was in the building as far as leadership, management. Even when visitors came to the building to visit the building, they will walk them literally to my station to watch and observe me work as, an example of how this process worked. And then we started with competitions. We started really building a real team and family. I used to, even as a regular tier one worker, I used to hold, people may remember, I used to hold these bowling events. I used to have about 40 of my coworkers come out to a bowling alley out here in Wallington, New Jersey. And we used to go bowling on Friday nights, and I would, collect money from everybody, put money down, and we'll have a blast. It was great. I really love the fact that I was able to meet people and consider these people my family because I spent so many hours of the week with them. So yeah, I was pro Amazon, not gonna lie. And when I got promoted, I realized now I'm in a position to help people get to where I'm at. I felt good to get a pay increase. I felt good to be working in the same department that I was kicking ass in. And now I want to extend that to other people, especially people of color, to get in the same position that I am. And for 4 years, I did that. I built relationships. I opened up two other buildings. So after 2 years of working in EWR9, I transferred to Connecticut for 1 year. And that was the beginning of the end. Wasn't COVID-19. So Connecticut, BDL2 Windsor, Connecticut at Amazon was probably the worst year of my entire life. That year, 2017, I pretty much, I lost my family, not my family, but I lost my wife. We got divorced. We were at least heading our separate ways at the time. I'm 200 miles away from home, working in Connecticut, coming back and forth to New Jersey every single week to spend time with my kids. And it just was a lot of stress on me, a lot to deal with. And the company had actually targeted the workers that came from New Jersey, myself included, and they started to get rid of us or write us up for things that were just tedious. And I actually got fired. I got fired from Amazon and was out of a job for 3 weeks in Connecticut with no money, with no resources, no anything, because the company decided to fire me for allegedly, get a kick out of this, stealing 2 minutes of company time. They were doing some crackdown on, managers and supervisors and associates that were stealing company time. And there were people that was actually doing it. They were taking 2-3 hours on lunch, and this was every single day. And they tried to put me in that ring of people. And it was actually a group of white supervisors. And they put me in there, and they fired me for 2 minutes. And I just felt it was so ridiculous. I appealed. They have an appeals process. I appealed it to the general manager, and I actually won and got it overturned and got reinstated. But now I would say, you know what, the hell with this building. I want to go back home to New York. That's when JFK 8 Staten Island was opening. It was still being built, and beginning to launch that summer, 2018. So I was trying to get transferred there when it launched, and I did. Of course, they threw me to the wolves. They put me on the worst shift ever. It's called RT. RT is Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, 12-hour shifts. They took away my life. They took away my fun of my life, at least. I was no longer allowed to go out and hang out on Fridays and Saturdays, having a weekend to enjoy to myself, because I'm at work overnight from 6 p.m. to 6 in the morning, 12 hours. And I lived in New Jersey, which we know is no really real direct transit to Staten Island. So I had a 3.5-hour commute every single day. I had to get up around 2 o'clock to get on the bus to New York, and from New York, take the train downtown, then take the ferry to Staten Island, then take another hour-long bus to Amazon facility. And I did this every day for 8 months. Rain, snow, shine. I was going to work every single night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 12 hours. And then on Sunday, I actually went from Amazon to MetLife Stadium. I was a supervisor now at MetLife Stadium. So I actually worked 24 hours on some days, on some weekends. Um, Imagine the stress I was going through then, especially dealing with a divorce, dealing with relocation, dealing with the commute, lack of sleep. And I found out months later from my manager that from my previous building, uh, Connecticut, my former manager, who I didn't get along with, he sent over an email to JFK, pretty much black sheeping me, destroying who I was as a supervisor, saying I was insubordinate, I don't work well with people, yada, yada, yada. Pretty much destroyed every opportunity that I thought I was going to get before I even had a chance to get it. I had no idea about this email until my manager told me about it. But it was disheartening to hear that I never had a fair shot of even getting promoted this whole entire time I was working there, because I felt I was doing the best I could. I received several awards. I received certificates. I was taking courses. I was doing everything I could to get promoted, but it never happened. I applied for my manager position 49 times and was denied every single one. And I watched as my white counterparts with less experience, less than 6 months, get promoted right over me. I watched as my coworkers that took the same interviews I did only have to answer a few questions, opposed to me who had to take math quizzes and get interviewed by people I knew wasn't going to have me in the right care. So this is what I was dealing with pre-COVID, to be honest with you all. And had COVID-19 had it haven't happened, I probably would have resigned from Amazon this year anyway, which would have been my 5th-year anniversary. Amazon has this thing where they offer um, pretty much a package for you to quit for a lifetime, and you can't work for them ever again. And I was actually going to take that. I was so done with the company mentally. Um, but COVID-19 came into play, and I didn't have that opportunity either. I watched as every single day my employees in my department, who I once again consider my extended family, get sick every single day, different symptoms. We're talking flu-like, you know, dizziness, fatigue. There was one case where I remember there was a vomiting at the station, and we was just, clean it up and put somebody right back on station, keeping business as normal, usual as possible. There was no protections, no guidelines, no PPE, and no real enforcement, no nothing. Um, I spoke to HR about it because now I'm a single parent and I have my kids for a number of days throughout the week. And we remember schools were closed back in March, are closing. And I had to stay home with them. Who else was going to do it? They're in my care. And I have to stay home. So I asked them originally, what are we doing for parents that have to stay home with their children? And it's basically was like, you can stay home as long as you want with no pay. They offered unlimited, unpaid time off, which means you can stay home with no penalties to protect yourself, but you're not getting paid for it. And I just felt, well, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to put food on the table? So it wasn't reliable, it wasn't resourceful, it wasn't what I wanted. So I started to fight behind the scenes, sending out emails to the media, to the Governor Cuomo's office, to the Mayor de Blasio's office. I did what I could behind the scenes to get some attention drawn to what was going on because I didn't align with that. And New York City became the epicenter. And now none of these emails I was sent out were even getting responded to. And I knew I had to take further action, just didn't know how I was going to do that. So I returned back to work on March 24th after taking some time off doing that. And that's when I knew shit hit the fan. My colleague who I work hand in hand with, who does the same job, supervisor, assistant manager job as well, she was sick. I seen it in her face. She had a mask on, thank God. Um, but her eyes were bloodshot red. You could see it on her eyes. Her face was kind of rosy, and she was fatigued. She was walking around sluggish. And I told her, I said, you should go home. She told me she got tested the day before. And I'm like, wow, you came back to work after being tested before getting your results. And I felt that was a red flag right there. And she did, because the company allowed you to do that. There's no penalty for doing that. You can come back to work until you get your results. So she was doing what she thought was right. And I was like, as a friend and concerned friend, I think you should go home. And she did. 2 hours later, that same day, we had a meeting. And in that meeting, my boss and higher ups, senior management, are telling us supervisors not to tell any of the employees that somebody tested positive 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks prior to that day. And I'm like, what do you mean not tell anybody? This is a deadly virus we're talking about. I think everybody needs to know. And I think we need to close this building down. I said that in this meeting. I said, I'll be closing the building down. And they looked at me and said, no, business as usual. We don't want to cause a panic. We're going to talk to people on that side of the building. So that was insane to me. I'm like, first of all, there's different shifts. So talking to them, the people that's here today doesn't mean they were there 2 weeks ago. Second of all, this building is 900,000 square feet, 14 NFL football fields. It's massive. It's 5,000 people from all over New York, all 5 boroughs of New York, and people from New Jersey like myself that commute to this building. How are you going to talk to a small handful of people and think that the rest is going to be protected? That was my logic of thinking. Apparently, that wasn't what they were thinking. They were thinking, once again, business as usual. And that was my last day working for Amazon, March 24th. I left the building that day, an hour later, after that meeting, with my colleague that I ride to work with. And that was it. I started taking my stance. We went home to my house, made phone calls to the CDC department, to Governor Cuomo's office. Once again, was getting the runaround, no answer, no real response. And that's when I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to hold a protest. So to give everybody, the real honest truth, I wasn't an activist. I wasn't an organizer. I wasn't, in tune with what was going on. Once again, I was actually a part of the issue. I worked for the company. I was dedicated to the company. I wasn't listening to the outside noise, controversy. Because as a worker, I don't think by default, we just tend to do that. We get up every day, we go to work, we rinse and repeat. We come home, we're so tired, you might eat dinner, you might watch a couple shows, you go to sleep, and you rinse and repeat and do it over and over and over again. This is what, this society is deeming us to do. And if you have a family and you can't survive for one job, you're working multiple jobs. So you really don't have time to be in tune with controversy and keep up with media and the news and what things are going on with the company. And that was me. I didn't understand what was going on with Amazon until I had time to step away from the company. And that happened because I made it happen. When I finally went to the media that week and I told them what I was doing, they asked me a question. They asked me, do you want to put your name out there? And I decided, it's only right to do that. I felt like if I didn't do it, who else is going to put their name and their neck out there like that? Especially in the position that I was in as a supervisor, person of leadership. I didn't see that happening. I spent the entire week off the clock in the cafeteria of that facility, organizing workers, telling them the truth, interrupting the general manager's meeting every morning at 9 o'clock, walking into his office with a group of associates, voicing our concerns. We had people that had underlying health conditions. We had mothers that had infant babies. We had mothers that were pregnant. We had black and brown. We had white. We had everybody there, representing all different types of people, and voicing our concerns to close the building down. And that's all we wanted, was to close the building down, clean it, and we'll come back to work. And that was the bare minimum. They didn't want to do that. So the entire week, I did that. And that's when I received a message from the colleague who I sent home on March 24th. And her results came back in that she was positive. And not only has she been around hundreds of people for 10-hour days, she's been around the supervisors. We all been around each other. You know, we were unprotected with no PPE, no cleaning supplies around each other. I was in and out the office the entire week. So for them to quarantine me out of 5,000 people, they quarantined me. I might have been the third person in that building at the time. I knew that was a target. Everybody else knew that too. You know, why just me and nobody else? Not even the person I ride to work with, not even my friends, not even the coworkers, nobody, just me. And that's when I say, you know what? The company won. They beat me. I'm on quarantine. What else can I do? I can't even do the protest. Yeah, but I say, you know what? Uh, Once again, if I don't do this protest, who else is going to do it? So I did it. On March 30th, drove to the building. Mind you, this building is 10 minutes away from my house at the time. It might have felt like it was the longest drive ever. That morning was the longest drive ever because I had butterflies. I didn't know what to do. I had no experience, no experience in protesting. And I knew shit was real when I was driving up and we seen the fucking helicopter flying above our heads. And I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck did I do? I pulled in the parking lot. I'll never forget. Me and my boy pulled in parking lot, and it's just a sea of media, vans, cameras. And I'm like, oh shit, this is it. This is happening. There's no going back. And they wanted a walkout, and I did. I gave them a walkout. I would love to get into the details, but I'll be here forever. But I'm going to let you guys know this before I close out. That day, 2 hours later, I was fired over the phone after the protest. The company claimed that I violated social distancing policy, which didn't exist, and quarantine policy, which didn't exist. And the reason why they didn't exist is because I'm a supervisor. And if we have any policies, I'm supposed to receive them to relay that to my employees. Never received anything. They were still trying to figure out what the hell they were dealing with and how are we going to protect workers at the time. And to be honest with you, if we even look at the photos and video of that day, I'm actually the only one that's wearing PPE. I had my own scarf, this lucky scarf that's on my head, actually. I had that around my mouth at the time. And that was my PPE. There was no PPE. So that was my PPE. And the people and workers in those photos, if you look at them till this day, you will see they had nothing, absolutely nothing. I was fired. A week later, Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, the man that makes almost $4,000 a second at that time, especially throughout the pandemic, $9 million an hour, $13 billion a day. This man decided to run a smear campaign on me. His top general counsel, David Sapolsky, had a meeting to call me not smart or articulate and make me the face of the whole union organizing efforts for Amazon. And, it's so ironic because, here I am. And at the time when this leaked memo came out, I will take you back to that day. I think I was shooting for the New York Times at the time. And I received the email with the leaked memo, the conversation, and I read it. And my lawyer contacted me and said, "Did you see this email?" And he was furious. He's a white man. His name is Frank Carroll, and he's from New York. And he was like, "I'm furious about this shit." And I say, "Yeah, this is stigma in the Black community. To call us not smart or articulate, make us look stupid, are not credible to speak about things when you're speaking truth to power. That's a tactic that capitalists use to crush the working class, to crush us, the people at the bottom of the totem pole." And for me to be threatening this man, the richest man in the world, and I'm making $25 an hour, capped out, by the way, meaning I wasn't due for any raises. I knew that what I was doing was powerful. And I knew at that moment, I wasn't going to allow that to happen to me. I wasn't going to be another fade to black story where, I was fired publicly, shamed, and then pretty much destroyed and erased. I was going to fight back. So what I did was I gathered myself. I received a call from Reverend Jesse Jackson that really uplifted me. This man walked with Martin Luther King. And that right there was so powerful by itself, because I never could imagine in my entire lifetime that I'd be speaking to him over the phone. And he appointed my amazing lawyer, C.K. Hoffler, and she took the case without question in less than 10 seconds, just by speaking to Reverend Jesse Jackson, who she represented for 30 years. And till this day, she still represents me, and we filed a class action lawsuit against Amazon to represent all workers that were affected by the pandemic. And I'm so happy that we're taking that battle on, but that wasn't what it's all about. The legal side is one thing, but galvanizing workers and uplifting workers' stories was another. So I spent the last 9 months traveling the country with the amazing organization I founded, TCOEW, the Congress of Essential Workers, a collective of essential workers, Amazon workers, former or current, and we traveled to Jeff Bezos' residence, New York City, $80 million mansion, Washington, D.C., $23 million mansion, probably more now because it's a fucking museum that he's remodeling. Then we went out west to the $165 million mansion in Beverly Hills. And our last demonstration was Seattle, Washington, his first Medina mansion, or Medina, one of the two. So we traveled throughout the pandemic. We told stories. We got a lot of support worldwide. We've done demonstrations. We got VPs to resign, named Tim Bray, one of them, Tim Bray, from AWS, to resign in solidarity with the workers. We built this amazing movement. We started a revolution, so to speak. And this is just the beginning. And the reason why I felt like this podcast is very valuable to my movement and to the fight and to all of us is because we want to talk about censorship. Censorship is real, and it does happen. And I have been a victim of it. One example, when I was in Beverly Hills, Jeff Bezos sent out a drone, or somebody in that mansion sent out a drone and scrambled our live streams and our Wi-Fi so that we couldn't tell the story to the public while it was happening. That's just one example. So it's an imperative that we do these podcasts. We create our own media platforms, especially for the people that's on the left, the people that want to take on these fights and these movements. We can't allow the 1% class, the big techs, the corporations to continue silencing us and shutting us down. We have to fight back in every way possible, whether it's politically, whether it's in the streets, and whether it's online at their own game, so to speak. We have to fight fire with fire. And, I'm not a big fan of social media, but I know that it's a tool that can be used. And we're in the 21st century. The new generation, the younger generation, this is the way they communicate now. We have to utilize that. We have to weaponize it for ourselves. And that's exactly what we plan to do. We're going to use and create our own propaganda. And I don't like using that word, but that's exactly what we're doing. This is our own propaganda. And I hope that it grows to a worldwide movement. We've done a great job so far. 2020 was an amazing year. And I'm looking forward to 2021. And that is my story. Thank you.